Good afternoon, this is Jack from theartchart.net, and this is an intraday recording, a bit late because of the Fed announcement, but on Wednesday the 31st of January. Our disclaimer: we do this for educational purposes only. We're here to share our technical analysis with you. We hope you can take some of what we're doing and learn from it, transfer it to your own charts. We're not here to issue trading signals. Now, what's happening here? Well, yesterday I mentioned that ES had reached a level and NQ had also reached a level where it could be forming the right shoulder on a head and shoulder pattern. Now, this is less obviously defined on ES because the obvious target would have been to backtest the weekly pivot, but there is actually gap resistance here. Is it possible this is a right shoulder that has been forming? Yes, it is. And if this is a right shoulder that's been forming, if we see a conviction break back below yesterday's low and then a conversion of that, then we would be looking potentially at a target in the... It's a bit lower than Stan's expecting at the moment, but we're potentially looking at a target in the 2750 to 60 area. That's worth bearing in mind. Now, I think Stan's looking for like 2800, then a large bounce and so on, but I'm just I'm calling the numbers, particularly as on an NQ. It did make the ideal right shoulder high, which was really test the weekly pivot area, and it's gone up there and it's tested weekly pivot and it's reversing back down here now. Now, it may be that what we would do is we'd go a bit lower on ES and then this would go down. Let's say find support down here in the 6850 to 6875 area and then reverse back up into a retest of the high. Maybe. What I would say is, if this is a head and shoulders, and we see a sustained break back below 6900, we'd be looking at a target in the 6800 area with some confidence, and that would definitely be something to think about. That actually, in terms of the overall retracement of this rising wedge, that only actually gets us back to the 38.2. That's what I would normally see as the minimum target in a market where equities go down. Obviously, which hasn't always been the case, obviously, over the last year and a half. So, but is this a setup I'm taking seriously? Yeah, it is. I'm going to be watching it carefully. It doesn't mean it's going to play out to target, but I'm definitely watching it carefully. Another thing to bear in mind here is that one of the things the bulls had going for them was that on TF, the rising wedge support had held yesterday, and we got a 120-minute buy signal, we had a nice little double top, bottom setup. What happened? Well, we got a classic Janus flag setup. It breaks up slightly, it reverses and retests the low. That retest of the low broke the rising wedge support. So this rising wedge is now definitely broken. Now this, again, puts TF in a topping process, and again, we've got potential head and shoulders that could form here. We've got the potential head and shoulder neckline in the 1570 area, and potentially this could be an asymmetric double top. An asymmetric double top is one with an uneven double top, where basically I would use duplicate targets. This would be the neckline here, and I would use one target being the height up to this high here, and the alternate target being the height up to this height here, and reckon it would make one or the other. If we were to see a breakdown from that, then we'd be looking at a test of the monthly pivot, although that's only the monthly pivot for today. But it would be heading back to this kind of area potentially, and that is worth bearing in mind. So anyway, that's equities. Pretty interesting looking setup. This is what I was saying last week when we saw the triangles break back. Then we'd see whether we were actually still in the 2017 market, where basically no bear thing ever followed through. This is seeing some follow through. I think it's slightly exaggerated. My wife actually came up to me and said yesterday, "Did you call the high?" Because she's been hearing all about this big high in equities. Now, the fact is, we've not actually seen much of a decline from the top. This is not a big high in equities. It's actually not likely to be a big high in equities, even if we do see a decent retracement from the top, because we're likely to go up higher afterwards, and sometime in the next year or two, we'll make a seriously big high in equities. But it's not here. So, but I think, but the fact is that we could we fall a couple of percent, and my wife was reading about it on the news. That was remarkable. It's been a while since we had any kind of retracement, really. Okay, right, switching over to DX. DX, this is not retesting the low yet. And it's kind of wasted this sell signal on the way. This 60-minute sell signal has reached the possible near-miss target, and could it be reversing to make the second high of a double top? It could. I'd be a little concerned to see it back over the weekly pivot really at this stage, but at the moment it looks as though it's going to get back over the weekly pivot, and the obvious next target looks like a retest of this high. I'm wondering whether it would stop there, and that's worth bearing in mind. Let's have a look at CL. CL, nice bounce here. I'd really be looking for resistance really in this zone here between the high here, but let's say 64.8 and the weekly pivot at 65.28. We've got the back test of broken rising support in the 65 area. Is there space to go up? Yes, there's no particular RSI reason to go up any further. But I think it's got a bit of legs to do so. Only if it gets back over the weekly pivot would we be looking at a potential retest of the high. Something you should never really rule out with confidence, but there's no particular reason to think we're going to see that here. NG. Finally, it falls, and about time too. Really, I was starting to wonder if it was ever going to happen. So last night, I was commenting that really there was very hard to see how the reversal setup could be in any way improved by another retest of the high, just because we'd had so many of them. So this is finally delivered. Double top made target. It's come down. It's tested wedge support. It's broken wedge support, and it's now made the 38.2% fib. This is the first target. It could potentially reverse here, but I don't think it's going to. I'd prefer to see it head down to the 50% fib retracement in the 2.9 area, and I would note that there is no positive divergence yet. Chances are this is going to go lower. This is counter trend, obviously, and as and when we find a low, we could find it pretty quickly and then head straight up. I'd be thinking with any luck we're going to see some divergence there, and we haven't got that yet. And it's had opportunity, but it's not developed it. It's not one of these things where it just spikes down to it and heads up and doesn't come back. This has actually been hanging around the 30 level for a while. It could have developed divergence, and it hasn't. I suspect there is going to be lower while it develops that. Right, GC. GC, I would note that from this morning, I was looking at this wedge and it hadn't yet broken up. It has now broken up. Now, there's a couple of things to consider here. One, is this a bull flag? My lean is it probably is a bull flag, but if it is a bull flag, then we've broken up from it. This should just be a retest of the low, and then this is setting up a potential double bottom, which would take us back to a retest of the high. But as I said, if we broke up from this wedge, this would favour a retest of the high, and as long as we hold this low area here, I think that's exactly what's happening. We've seen the second low of a double bottom on a breaking conversion of the weekly pivot. We should see a retest of the high. That would probably be the second high of a double top. Is there an alternative here? Yes, there is. The alternative is the main alternative is that actually this isn't a bull flag, and that actually this is a wedge which is going to break down. A wedge that's going to break down becomes, in effect, its own topping pattern. It's a sort of special category of a reversal pattern that's rarer, but nonetheless you do see regularly. And in this case, this would be a bearish overthrow. We would continue down here. The first serious warning sign would be when we went through wedge support, currently in about the 1331 area. And on a breakdown, this would have a target pretty much like the potential IHS target I was talking about this morning. This would have a target in the 1290 to 1295 area, and these tend to be pretty good at making those targets. It's possible we could be forming a larger flag at that stage, but my lean would be to say that this was likely to be a wedge that was breaking down. So we've got important support really here, 1330 to 35, that the bulls really need to hold if they want to retest or if we want any more meaningful retracement upwards before the next leg down. So nice setup there. It's going to be very interesting to see how it turns out. Now, ZB, obviously the Fed have weighed in today. Nothing happened, which wasn't news really. ZB has gone down and it's retested the low, and that's holding so far. I think this is the second low of a double bottom. I'm going to redraw this and move this line across to here. This is obviously a smaller double bottom on a breaking conversion of, I think, 148.07. Then we're going to be looking at a target in the low 149s. So what, say 149.10 or 11. So that would still get us up to pretty close to the same IHS neckline in the 149.22 area, and I'd be looking to see whether an IHS formed there. I'd be looking for a larger reversal pattern to form in all probability. It's not quite decided whether it wants the low to be in yet, but it should be. Interest rates haven't changed, the Fed has spoken, the news has passed. We've got a lovely double bottom set up here. Signals and divergences everywhere. We've got the daily sell signals on TNX have not yet fixed, but they're very much brewing. We've got fixed sell signals on the 60-minute. We've got one on the 15-minute. It's and until this Fed move actually broke it, we had one on the 5-minute too. But I'm not too worried about the 5-minute. We've got plenty of divergences already. We don't need a 5-minute. It's fact is, this should be turning here. This should be the low, and we need to break and convert at this level here, which I think is 148.07, to open the upside and get us back into the 149s. At which point the turn should be in. I really like the ZB long. We'll see shortly whether it likes me as much. All right, HG. HG, we should have a low in here. We've broken up from the flag megaphone. This should have a minimum target at a retest of this high here, which should get us back to this trend line here. This trend line's in the 3.2575 area approximately, and that needs to be broken to open the next leg up, and the full target, which should be, Stan's talking about 340. That can go as high as 350. Quite easily, actually. So I really like the upside on this one. We're back testing at the moment. Could we retest the low? I think it's unlikely, but it's possible. I'm expecting really a back test of the monthly pivot stroke weekly pivot. We're pretty close to that already. And as long as they hold a support, it should go. So we'll see how that goes. All right, just running through the others quickly. Let's have a look at KC. KC, we've got, it's continuing lower here. As I was saying this morning, the obvious next target is actually a retest of this low here. I don't know if it's going to make it. This is quite late for KC to be doing a back test like this. More likely to see... Oh, right, okay, I've got a question on DX. I'll sort out the questions at the end. But I think here, I think I'm leaning towards seeing, rather than a strong conviction, I'm leaning towards seeing a retest of this low here, and possibly as low as a retest of this low here. That would set up a nice pattern setup. I don't know whether KC's got that much downside left in it. Certainly we're more or less out of sell signal. SB. SB is finally heading back. Wow. We've got unfinished business at a full retest of this low. That's in the 13 area. I would like to see that made. After that, really, it's got my permission to leave on the upside. But we should do this first. This would hopefully be the second low of a double bottom. We've got a bit of room in here. We could set up a possible 60-minute buy signal on a move here, and that's what I would like to see ideally. CC. CC has headed back up again. Obviously, this is on a slow, winding retracement move. Sooner or later, it's going to break this trend line here. I've currently got that in the 1935 area, and this is flag support, and we should then see a retest of this low, and then Sten's looking lower. Before then, we may well go and visit this megaphone resistance, which is in the 2070 area. I've marked an IHS here. I'm not expecting it to make target. I'm not seeing anything to suggest it's going to make target, really. But it's always possible, and if it does, that's in the 21-25 area. But I'm not really considering that as a serious target for the moment, at least. Right, ZW. Right, ZW has broken down from the rising megaphone. The 60-minute sell signal has fixed. It's not made the possible near-miss target yet. I'm really looking for some more retracement. I'd really like to see a test of about 440 area, which would be about 50% retracement of this megaphone. Not seeing anything at the moment to suggest we're not going to see that. There may well be some more topping process before we see it. GBP USD. GBP USD... as I was saying this morning, if as long as we hold the weekly pivot as support, I'm not seeing any reason why this shouldn't go back and retest the high. Having said that, it now looks as though it's forming a double top with the weekly pivot as double top support. Obviously, even more importantly, the weekly pivot needs to continue to hold to preserve the upside. As long as this upside holds, I don't see why this shouldn't retest the top. This looks like a bull flag which has broken up. USD. USD has been, its move to the high has been interrupted by DX not cooperating so far. It's backtesting the weekly pivot at the moment. If that holds as support, then it's back on, and we should head to this high. If it's not, if it breaks back below it, then what we may be doing here is forming a larger bull flag. A bull flag channel, if we went down and touched channel support, would have a target approximately in the 1.23 area. So that's what I'd be watching. I'd be looking for a relatively marginal higher high on DX and a relatively marginal lower low on USD. USD JPY. Right, USD JPY, this is actually making some progress to the upside. As I've been saying, and the 60-minute buy signal has now made the full target. I'm expecting, well, on this pattern setup, the obvious next move is a test of megaphone resistance here, which is currently in the 109.85 area. I think we're on the way there. When it gets there, it could also break up, or it could reverse back down. I'm not seeing any particular reason to think at the moment that it would break up. Although we are coming into some fairly sizable support on the bigger picture charts. USD CAD. If this was an Elliott wave triangle, then this would be a termination pattern. And actually we'd be breaking down, back testing, we'd start to thrust down, and then we should see a larger rally. It's not an Elliott wave triangle. So really this is just a bear pennant. So it's made the obvious target to retest the low and slightly lower, and there's no particular reason for it to go any further than this. We could be making the second low of a double bottom here. We've got clear trend line resistance in about the 1.24 area. Stan is wondering if that's going to break and we'll see a decent rally here. I think that may well be the case, and we'll see. In which case this could be first low, second low, double bottom, or possibly a part formed IHS here, and we'll see how it goes. We're both seeing a very significant possibility of a decent rally on USD CAD here. Australian dollar. I noticed Barmer was mentioning this, and he's looking at the potential downside there, and he's talking about a 76 target, and I like that target. But I am thinking we may well need. I've got a bigger picture chart which I'll show here quickly. This is a rising wedge that should, on this setup, probably be a bear flag. This is Barmer's 76 target area, and it's heading back to this support trend line. I don't think we've actually quite hit the resistance trend line yet, so I don't think it's quite ready to turn, but it's likely to turn soon. Then we'll head back, we'll hit that target, and then we'll either turn back up to hit wedge resistance again, or we'll break down, and this will start to play out to the downside. Sooner or later, there's going to be a fairly epic short here. Far bigger than 76 because it'll have a target at 68. But I don't think we're there quite yet. We shall see. All right, NZ. NZ is, well, it's got a targeted full retest this high. It hasn't quite made that high yet. Got no negative divergence. I'm not seeing any obvious reason to think this retest this high won't be made. But I will note that it does look as though Australian dollar might have turned a bit early. I'm expecting to see some more upside on both. I could be mistaken. All right, let's have a look at DX. Had a question about that. Are we more likely to see upside in DX first or downside? Well, at the moment we are seeing some upside. That upside could well have a target at a retest of this high, at which point we've got an inflection point. That may well be the second high of a double top, in which case we go and make a lower low, and that would be my preferred lean. Alternatively, we could be forming some kind of a larger bear flag pattern. I wouldn't rule out the possibility certainly if we were forming a bear flag channel, that we would head up to the 89.9 area as a maximum. I wouldn't really expect to see more than that before we retested the low. Anything more than that would look like a breakup. All right. Okay, great. In that case, well, I'm going to stop the recording now.